What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
another day at the office, I get to go out there and test my skill.
to award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones,
Orlando, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, sir. I'm good, brother. How you doing?
and all the other interesting guests we've had on. Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support.
Mercado Airwaves is brought to you by supporters at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves.
If you would like to support Mercado Airwaves, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Find us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. Keep up to date with the show on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves.
You can see all of Nicole's work at typingwhentipsy.wordpress.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Mercado21Alex.
Follow Mike on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, MikeMercado2333.
My dream growing up was to be my own boss, to own a small bookstore and cafe and really just keep to myself. As I have grown up, that dream is still alive and well, but let's add in publishing and creating stories for people to fall in love with, characters to become your friends, and problems to resonate with people across the board. To get to that place, however, I have taken many roads and found things that I enjoy along the way. One of those things is you, podcast. I enjoy you very much. And spending nights with my producer and my co-host, researching, coming up with ideas and topics to talk about. One thing I did not anticipate, though, was how wonderful and fulfilling, but also difficult it can be to work with your family and friends, and what that truly entails. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another show, Typing When Tipsy. I am so excited that you guys are back this week. This week, we're going to talk about some interesting things that I think I didn't really realize would be so difficult, and so much fun on top of it, which is working with family and friends. Part of that, in fact, is I had a few people who are going to be on this week, and things kind of fell through. So I dragged Mike away from his football today so that I had someone to talk to, because I'm still not quite comfortable talking to myself for the next 20 minutes. So thank you, producer Mike, for coming on the show once again.
No problem.
So I guess I wanted to talk about this because I have worked with my brother before, but there's a really big age gap between us. My oldest brother's almost 20 years older than I am. So working with him, yes, you're still working with your siblings, but I was the only girl in the family growing up, so I kind of made the rules anyways. And I don't make the rules here. So I think it's kind of interesting. And I wanted to get your thoughts, and I know that, we've talked about why you kind of created Mercado Airwaves and why you've created these shows, but I think it would be interesting for the listeners to kind of hear your take on it and why you created it. What made you want to do it with family? Are you insane?
So why did I do it? I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to create my own content. The reason I did it with family is because I knew the talent was there. So I knew I could have conversation there, but it's not for everybody. This business isn't for everybody. So, I got very lucky in it, but I'm not a good example. I'm not a good example for working with family. I give the reins off to people a lot, and I let them kind of just showcase their talent. So I'm very interested to hear later on what people who open businesses and things like that say after they hear this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And I get what you're saying, but I think you're a great example, because I think due to the fact that you are so involved in this business and you know what you're doing and you're trying to, I mean, I think we've gotten better at it, but in the beginning it was a lot of coaching and kind of showing us what to do and not getting frustrated when you've said it 17 times, like, don't play with the mic, don't put your mouth too close, don't play with your cup. The mic picks everything up. So, you know, I guess what it is like, how do you get past that and kind of, I feel like in general, people talk to their siblings a certain way or their family members a certain way. That's not necessarily a way that you would speak to a coworker or speak to someone you work with.
I think it's two different points you're making. Like, the way I would talk to my brother or you or anybody in general compared to somebody that I work with is pretty similar because it's the way I teach, it's the way I talk. Like, I think there are people who probably are afraid to tell family members one thing because they have to live with them or they see them more often compared to other people. But for me, it comes down to, it doesn't matter whether or not you're blood, friends, co-workers, acquaintances. We all have different entry levels and different talent levels. So to Michael Jordan, and I'm not comparing myself to MJ, but to Michael Jordan teaching somebody basketball,
right?
To him, he sits there and he's like, why can't you just make the basket? Why can't you just get in between the defense, drive into the lane, and be able to hit it off the backboard without looking at it? It's like, because I'm not you, MJ.
Right.
You know, it's the same thing. It's like you can't expect people to have the same type of perspective you do. The big thing for me is that perspective is very important. So because I see it one way and because I've been doing it a certain different way, I'm more open to hearing what other people have to say because I don't see it their way. Because I'm not coming from their perspective, because they're coming from a different angle, I'm able to interweave that with everything else I'm doing. But not everybody can do that, and it's one of those things where you have to be willing to put your ego to the side and say anything good that happens is for the greater good, whether I do it or somebody else does it. And the end game is for all you sports fans, is to win the title. You know, it's to win the championship. It's to get to the finish line and to be winners, but to be consistent at it. It's to be a consistent winner. It's to make this a well-oiled machine where you don't have to look back at it. And I think anybody doing any business, especially with family, have to get it to the point where you're not on the grind all the time, that you put the grind in so that eventually the grind continues on its own.
So, okay, did you find that there were specific challenges you kind of had to get past when you started doing this with us? Like, were there certain things that you kind of put in your head, like I said, sometimes people, I think it goes either way with family. You either feel like you don't want to hurt their feelings or you don't have necessarily those filters that you would have to be like, hey, dude, you're not listening and I don't appreciate it kind of situation. Like, were there times you needed to step back, or were there times that you needed to kind of like figure out the best way to teach us? And I don't think Alex and I are the same type of learners. So were there ways that you approach things differently?
Failure is the best lesson. So if you think you have a great idea, and I tell you, I don't know if it's going to work, or I'm not sure it's going to work, and you want to do it, well, try it. Because the only way you're going to learn then is for it to mess up. So in the case of Alex, we've had countless conversations about our shows.
Yeah.
Like, it has had so many different revamps, and like we retooled it so many times because we're constantly perfectionists on it. We're always trying to kind of find that nice groove with it.
Right.
Sometimes it falls on its face. There's times where it's my idea where I'm like, yeah, hey, this is going to work. If we do this, I promise you, we're gonna get the views, we're gonna get the listens. It doesn't happen. It's the worst show we do.
Yeah.
And then vice versa. But it's your acceptance of that. So it's like you have to be willing to accept other people's, you know, their passion and and what they wanted and their drive. Because look I'd rather coworkers, and if they just so happen to be family members that are passionate enough where they're willing to risk it because they believe in it, opposed to just being like, all right, we'll do whatever.
Okay.
All right, we'll do whatever. It's just as dangerous.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And when you created Mercado Airwaves, you had kind of an idea in mind, right? Like what you wanted to do, what you wanted, not like a clear, like this is exactly what show I'm going to do every single week, but you knew, did you know what the end goal was for you?
No, I started the brand so that there was something, an umbrella to something.
Okay.
I regret the name a little bit. I regret that we went.
Would you ever rebrand?
No, we're too far deep.
Okay.
Like, we're at this point, like, it's too far deep. Like, the only time you could really rebrand is once you've had enough following that they could follow the rebrand.
Okay.
Like, right now, we're just too far deep into it. But with that in mind, it's like I did it so that there was one umbrella, but I guess that I learned this from a great podcaster and somebody who's really deep into the entertainment. It's like you can't do anything without a business plan, and this started without a business plan.
Right.
It developed into one, but at the end of the day, like all this it's either a hobby or it's a business, and it's up to you to decide whether it is. For me, I feel like I have enough confidence in myself and a check of my ego where I can just so happen to work with family members that I deal with 24/7, that I don't get a buffer with people. Like that's the thing though, like my life is very much a blur. A lot of people never understand this about me, but like my life never ends anywhere.
Right.
It's one continuation. Like it's the same faces, whether from the studio or at home. It's always in front of a microphone. And like obviously you love what you do. The point is though is to still work. It's like the only times I get away is when I go play Spider-Man or I go for a walk or I go to the gym or something. But even then, like if I'm playing Spider-Man, I'm probably broadcasting it.
Yeah.
So it's like you're always on the grind. It's like here's the trick too. There's an illusion to all this where there's this magical level where you don't have to do that anymore. It's like no, like it won't matter when I'm 35. Like I'll still have to stay up doing the editing, checking this, checking that. Like there's never going to be a point where it slows down unless you deliberately say I want to slow down.
Yeah.
It's like that's when you do slow down. Otherwise, it's always a grind.
So okay, then what made you think? Or I don't even know if it was or what made you be so on board with us coming up with all of these different shows? Because really, I mean, like, I think in general, like, we all work at our shows. Like, we all try to put work in. We all really try to get our research in, And, like, I mean, last week you saw it where I was finally, like, I lost it. And I was like, guys, I just need help. And, like, it took me a second. Like, after we had that conversation, I was like, oh my God, like, yes, I have other things I'm doing, but so does Mike and so does Alex. And like, I think sometimes, unlike you guys, I need to like blurt it out because I need to feel like I've expressed it. But I think it kind of came like, oh shit, like I woke up at 1 a.m. the other day and you're still editing. And it's like, that never ends. But like, how do you get to that point where you're like, you know what, this is what I want to do? Is it because you knew you wanted to own a business and that's just it's just part of it? Like there's no getting away from it. You don't have an editor. You don't have another producer.
There's no team around it. Alex isn't going to edit. You're not going to produce. And like, not that you guys couldn't, but it's like, that's not your job. That's not your responsibility. Like there's people who do that. And we're not big enough to do it, but it's just become part of the routine though. Like it's muscle memory. Like I can almost, it becomes white noise and I can only hear the things I need to hear out. Like, and a lot of the edits now are just more to tighten up the show so that there's not so many gaps when people try to gather their thoughts. I think there's a responsibility that I'm starting to give to you guys in the sense of you guys aren't rookies in this anymore. Like we're almost a year deep on almost every show.
Yeah.
And while yes, you guys aren't radio professionals going on WSBC 1240 AM Chicago, but like it's still, you guys know, all right, like I can't mess up this way, or I shouldn't swear in this instance, or I shouldn't have a brain fart in the middle of the show. I should know my notes well enough where if I even stumble a little bit, I kind of know how to get back on track. Like that's something that I expect from people who are seasoned a little bit more, especially in the podcast realm, because you're not fighting on the airwaves on 3-minute segments. Like it's just conversing. So like there's a lot of that now where I'm starting getting to the point where it's not so tedious.
Okay.
But just the grind of it never ends. Like that's part of the game. Like it just never ends. I don't just work at a radio station.
Right.
I'm the head of a media company, quote unquote.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think that I think it also took some probably acceptance that there were some things we weren't going to change. I'm never going to stop cursing like a sailor. And that's like, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
I
but
think
that's not your job to stop, but it comes more along the lines of.
Right, but what I'm saying is I think that just knowing that and knowing that I probably wasn't going to censor myself ever, like, we just know kind of how that is going to work. Like, Nicole's going to swear every single time, and it's just that's how she talks, that's how she functions, that's her, I can't think of that word right now, and I know it, but you know what I mean? Like, that's just part of how I speak in general.
Yeah, your lexicon.
But thank you. That was the word I was thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
The writer doesn't know any words. But I mean, I think for me, I'm always blown away when you're like, hey, let's try another show. Like this was basically us just trying another show to kind of see how it was going to work. But I'm like, it is so much more work for you. It is so much more to do. So it's like, does it become really tedious, or is it something that you still do enjoy? Like, do you still find it enjoyable, or does it feel like a job? Does that make sense?
No, sure. It's enjoyable when I make it enjoyable. It's one of those things where you can make it as miserable as you want.
Okay.
You really can. Like, I could sit here and be like, okay, we're 20 minutes into the show, so that's at least 40 minutes worth of something. You know, and half of it is just saving and transferring and doing things like that. But I think the key to it is ask a famous person whether acting is work to them. Right. Ask somebody. It doesn't matter if you love what you do. I love what I do. The thing is, there's some days where it feels like work.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's just what it is. It doesn't change the fact that you don't love what you do. You don't appreciate what you do. You don't appreciate what. It's not complaining at all. Like, I don't complain about it because I chose to do it and I like doing it. Like, it beats waking up and, you know, breaking my back. Shout out to the people who do that. Like, I don't have to do that.
No, absolutely. So, did you ever think that when you were starting this network, I mean, I knew that you had kind of had this idea where your brothers or your kids in the future would be a part of this brand, or at least have the ability to be a part of this brand.
Never. I never wanted my kids to ever be part of this brand.
Really?
No, never. No, absolutely not. That's I think that's horrible to install this idea of like, all right, I'm going to make this network that might be worth $30,000 in 17 years from now, and I'm going to make them a part of it. Like, no, if they want to be into media, and I just so happen to have the next, I don't know, BuzzFeed, cool. But, like, there's, what if they want to be something that breaks their back?
Yeah.
Like, that's not their...
I didn't mean like you wanted them to, they had to be involved. What I'm saying is give a platform that if they wanted to be involved.
No, honestly, it never crossed my mind. Like, I never thought of, like, I thought if it's a platform for people, but never, like, I never brought in Fixing No Children. Like, it never even crossed my mind. I think the things that I do in life in general are to better myself for the theoretical children of the future, but like I never thought specifically Mercado Airwaves would do this. Like sometimes I think Mercado Airwaves is just the beginning of the next thing that will be. So like it never, you know, that never for me that never really crossed my mind.
So, and that makes sense because I Isaac talks about it all the time with you know, where I used to work, and he was like, I would never want my kid to have to be involved in my company. It's not his job to be involved.
And for the audience, who is Isaac?
He was my former employer at Middle Ground. Okay. So I still do some article work with them, so I talk to them pretty regularly. But cool. He just had a son last year, so that was kind of a thing like, oh, do you want to get him involved? And he was like, no. Technology is ever changing, so it's, you know, it's
media won't be the same 5 years from now. I don't know if I'll be in media in 5 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. And, like, did you ever think that you would be working on any podcasts with your girlfriend? Did you think that would, like, you know what I mean? Like, because it just seems
I've never thought of it, but I never opposed it either.
Yeah.
Like, I'm one of the, you know, I don't think things are going to happen. I just prepare for stuff to happen.
Okay.
So I'm always kind of ready for something. Like, I'm always ready for a... Okay, for like radio example, I'm never expecting a new co-host, or I'm never expecting a type of co-host. I'm always expecting the unexpected. Sometimes you might get a shy one. Sometimes you might one that you might have to crack. There might be one that is very giving. There might be one that's very, you know, blockish. You deal with all types of life. There's some that stumble. For example, you and Alex are two totally different co-hosts. Yeah. You guys are unbelievably different. Like Alex, and he's gotten better at it, is very much especially between he and I, because sometimes it's just in our instincts, you know, we're brothers, so it's like sometimes it's in our instincts to talk over each other. Right. I have to bring that back myself because I'm like, it's his show. Like, people want to hear about him. Like, sure, my opinions, but like they can hear my opinions anywhere. Literally, I could drop an opinion anywhere I want. But like, they want to hear him. So sometimes I got to take it back. And then there's you. You're very giving. Once you give a question, you lay it up and you let me respond, or whoever's I guess on the show, you just kind of let them run wild and talk about it. That's a skill. There's a skill in radio that I think makes somebody great, or at the very least is a skill that not a lot of people have. That's the trick to longevity that I believe, and it's listening. Like, I feel that's my one trait. I don't think I have the best voice. I don't think I have the best cadence. I think I'm very weird at speaking. I understand it. I lose track of words. My mind speaks faster than my brain can develop. Like, all those things are true, but I listen. So when I interview, it's interactive. The guest cares about what I'm saying because I care about what they're saying, and that's a skill and a gift that you have to. At least for me, it goes back to like, I appreciate that. Like, whenever a great interview or a great show or I do something like that, it's that rejuvenation of like, oh yeah, I remember what I did. It's like hitting a home run in a game when you've been in a slump.
Yeah.
Or like, just when you had a great workout where you just, oh, I remember why I love doing this. It's not always fun. Like, you guys read the comments wherever you guys are. It's like, it's again, talking about the 2 a.m. startups, talking about the fact that I'm already thinking about tomorrow's show. I'm thinking about Wednesday's show. I'm thinking about when is it more feasible to schedule this? And then you start thinking like, all right, well, this famous show just did that. So now how does the smaller show respond? Because we don't want to just go off the coattails of the famous one. Like, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. But when you hit that stride, that's that moment for me, when I hit that moment of like, oh yeah, then...
And I think, to your point of, like, that listening, I think it's funny because I think in everyday life, I'm not always the best listener. That sometimes, like, I'll talk with you, and I think the only reason I do it here better is because I take what I've heard you do to ask questions and then be quiet and listen to someone answer. Because for me, I feel like my brain kind of splits. Where in my everyday life, I don't necessarily have that kind of trigger motion. But it's like when I used to nanny, I didn't curse at all when I watched the kids. Yeah. Because my brain changes to, this is nanny brain, you can't do that. And when I'm here, I'm like, okay, I'm interviewing someone or I'm talking to somebody, asking their opinion. I need to let them fully finish their sentence before I start speaking. So I think that it's interesting that that's something, I never really noticed it until like we were talking the other day. And I realized I was kind of answering at the same time. And I'm like, oh, like, I don't do that here. But for some reason, it's like I have two separate spaces in which I'm living, and I'm not always sure why, but I think it's something to keep in mind. I think that you've given me some really great, like, tips, skills, and things for being on the radio.
Well, thank you, and I've learned a lot from you and Alex. Like, you guys have your own skills that I didn't have as somebody who's been doing this for years already. Like, you learn something from people that you work with. Again, it comes down to how comfortable are you with them. Like, when it comes to like Alex, I don't care if we get mad at each other. Nothing's gonna happen.
Right.
So it's okay. I don't care. Like, we're good. Same thing with you. It's like what is gonna happen? Like, nothing's gonna happen. You can disagree. You can have conversation, and then you move on. You just continue with it. Because guess what? The next day, you still got to record.
Yeah.
Unless you don't want to. And once you miss the first one, and it's not because of some medical issue or because something legit happened, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Because you don't miss things that you want to do.
Right.
Like, you make time for it. You try to make time for it. Doesn't mean it's not a hassle. We all like working out when it's a good pump. Does anybody like getting in the car? Does anybody like driving over there? Does anybody like getting in that nasty locker room? Does anybody like, being in a stinky gym with a bunch of people looking at them? No, right? But you love how you feel afterwards. You love what you're doing. Like, you get lost in that zone. Imply that to anything, and that includes this. It's like, there's amazing conversations like this. There's also work that goes with it. Right. There's also headaches that go with it.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky that the business that I'm running with family, with friends, just so happens that they're not the headache part of it. I'm sure there's tons of businesses that have that bad repertoire because they're family, but I personally, and that's what I said at the beginning of the show, I'm a bad example because of that, because I'm very fortunate. It's like, we've had some mild success, and we maintain being civil when it comes to like disagreements amongst us three. So it's like that's more than anybody else can say.
Well, and I think just in general, as like the person that I am, and like Alex and I had talked about it the one time too, where I do communicate with you guys when I'm like feeling a certain way, but then there are plenty of times when I get upset about something and I'm like, it's probably not that important, so I just don't say anything about it, and I kind of let it fester a little bit until like I'm just like, you know what, I really need to talk about this. And I think when it comes to this, and working together, I've been a little bit more forward with how I'm feeling, even though if you guys may not understand it or like not agree with it even, because I'm like, if I let it fester, it's just going to go real bad real quick, and it's going to be a big fight, and I'm not going to want to talk to them, and I'm not going to want to be on the show, and that's not something I ever want to do. So it was like when I was getting frustrated, the first thing I did was like, guys, this is how I'm feeling. I don't feel like you are listening to me, which can be really complicated because I think that I grew up with brothers, but they also grew up with a sister. So, you know what I mean? They grew up with a sister who's I've always been super open emotionally. And like, this is how I'm feeling, this is how it is. But my mom was very much like that, where she was like, you're allowed to be angry, you're allowed to be sad, you're allowed to express how you feel as long as it's not hurting other people. You guys didn't necessarily have that relationship with each other. So sometimes I think it's like, you come in here and it's like, we need to talk about feelings. And you guys are kind of like, everything's fine, Nicole, what are you talking about?
Sure.
But like,
we're just dumb boys sometimes. It happens.
But it's like also learning to communicate on that level, and like me letting you guys know, like, the reason I want to talk about this is because I'm frustrated and because I feel this way and I don't want to feel this way. So like, let's just get this out there. You guys can think I'm a total nutball and that's fine. I just need to say what I have to say to move forward. Yeah. So that I feel like I've lifted it out.
But that's anything though. Like, you got to be able to communicate. Even with me, like, whenever I have a frustration, and like, here's the thing, this is where it comes into key. It's all about how you respond to it. Right. So like, you know, when you say, guys, we need to talk, it's not an attack. Like, that's where the first thing you need to do is you need to accept that they're not attacking me, they're talking to me. And they're not talking at me, they're talking to me. They're trying to describe how they're feeling. Okay, and it doesn't matter whether they're family, they're a man, they're a woman, they're a coworker, they're a friend. Like, as a human, child, like, if somebody comes up to you and they're saying, I need to talk to you because I'm feeling this way, you gotta listen. Yeah. That's what, at the very least, listen to them. I'm not saying that they may not be 100% crazy. They may not be taking things overboard, but that's how they feel. They have a right to feel that way unless they're psychotic. Right. Like, medically psychotic. Like, unless they're taking crazy pills, like, you got to listen to them. So, for me, it's like, if you come in and you're like, man, guys, I'm tired, like, the research, I'm going down the rabbit hole. It's like, on top of that, I'm doing finals. Can you guys just do this, and that? And be like, yeah, send it my way. It's like, You have to be able to pick up the slack, because at some point somebody's going to pick up the slack for you. Yeah. So it's like, you have to be willing to do both. You got to be willing to listen to it, but you got to also, for me, it's always like, you got to also watch nagging. Like, there is a difference between like legit feelings and nagging. It's like, if you get mad because the room's a little hot, you got to check yourself. Or if you get mad because there's no green Skittles, you got to check yourself. Like, there's a difference between, hey, guys, I'm feeling emotionally drained and, like, you guys are taking advantage of me and my hard work, compared to, I want to start at 9:05 instead of 9 o'clock. Right. No. Why? Like, unless there's a medical, like, you have to be also reasonable. Yeah. Like, I think all things being equal in this crazy world, we have lost that. We have lost being reasonable with one another. We have all lost this common sense with one another. And I think you see a lot of that with businesses nowadays, with family, because, like, what does common sense tell you? Like, not 2008 common sense. What does common sense tell you? You owe somebody $30. Don't give them $20 and tell them you don't have the other 10 while you're going to go pick up a Big Mac. You know what I'm saying? Yes, it's like, just do it. Like, what does common sense say? Just do it, and everything will be better for it. And that to me is the basis of all this. Just do it, and you'll be better for it eventually. Yeah. You will be. That's the truth, guys. Like, that is the truth about all of this bullshit. That's it right there.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point, and it's something that you're right. I think we have lost. I think that there are things that we kind of forget to do, and just kind of accept and move on from it. There are things that we have to do every day that you have, like, at the end of the day, for me, is that if we were able to be fortunate enough to be able to do this, more full time than what we're doing now, it's like, if I'm going to argue with anybody, if I'm going to get frustrated with anybody, I'd rather be, you guys in my home than somewhere where I don't necessarily want to be. And, like, I like my job, but it's the fact that, like, this would be definitely more up my alley, and I think feeds my creative soul a little bit more. So for me, I think that it's, when I come down to it, I'm like, I can bitch and complain and say, I'm really frustrated, I don't want to do this, but at the end of the day, I'd rather be doing this than anything else.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, that's kind of where it comes down to. And like, you know, like you said, with the research and things like that. And I know I mentioned it before, but like I am in grad school and there's a lot of things going on. And sometimes I get really frustrated and I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, and that's the one time Alex is like, well, what's going on? What's happening? And I'm like, I literally have written 40 pages of work in the past week. And now you're asking me to do another 4 pages of research. It's only 4 pages, but I've already done 40. So like my brain feels a little on overdrive and I just need a minute. And like, that's when you were like helping me out with like doing our episode for the Murder Mysteries and More, like the Bradley sisters, and you're like, hey, I can get the last portion for you, don't worry about it, get your drafts done, and like we'll get there.
Well, it's one of those things where not only you're doing it because you got to be a decent human being to help somebody out, but help your teammate out. But like, if you don't do it, it doesn't get done.
Right.
Like that's one of those things where it's like if you don't pick up the slack, if you don't pick up the block, if you don't pick up the linebacker, your quarterback's going to get sacked, and it's going to hurt. And what are you going to do when your quarterback gets down and it breaks his shoulder? Your season's done. So you got to pick up the block. Like that to me is like always it's the great thing about sports. You just always kind of learn. You pick up your teammate.
Yeah.
Even when you're down, like it's the one thing I always appreciated about sports. It's like even when you're down, even when you're feeling kind of lousy, even no matter what, it's like you always kind of got to keep going. Like it's instilled in you. It's like until it's over, it's not over. So it's like even, you know, with something like that, it's like when your teammate tells you, hey, I need some help, you're like, all right.
Yeah.
It's like, because guess what? There's going to be a day where I'm not all 100% and somebody's going to pick us up.
Right.
It's going to be a day where I have a nasty cold and people are going to, I can't do the show.
Yeah.
And you guys are going to have to do it. It's like those things that, like, you just got to be able to pick people up. And I think that's the benefit of working with family and friends. It's like, if you have that trust that's already installed and you're not garbage people, it's perfect. It's fine.
Right.
It's all about what you want to be. And here's I think the last thing I'll leave people with is you got to try to be, and this is very cliche, but you got to try to be you. So I hear so many people, for example, like the Good Brother and I listen to Collider. Shout out to Collider and Complex and all of them. But one of their main hosts says, I want to have a show like Joe Rogan. I want to be like Joe Rogan. Everybody wants to be like Joe Rogan. Of course. But it shouldn't be, of course. You should acknowledge and admire how well a show like Joe Rogan has done, or in our case, like My Favorite Murder and Last Podcast, and you know Serial, and all these great podcasts that are out there.
Wine and Crime, my new favorite.
All those great podcasts, like they make their own way, and you don't. People who try to be other people fail. You got to be you.
Yeah.
It's like. For example, the Good Brothers came because Alex and I used to watch Collider, and we like movies. We go to almost all the premieres. We argue or agree with them while we're watching a damn show. Why don't we just do a show? We like, hey Mike, aren't you a radio broadcast host in the city of Chicago? Can't you kind of like put this together? You're like, oh yeah, we can. And it never became like we want to be Collider. It's like, no, it's Alex and I talking. Then it became, well, Nicole's actually pretty smart. Oh, you know, there's a bunch of shows that have women right now that are like showing their intelligence and like really being part of that woman power. Maybe we should be part of that woman power. Or we just got lucky enough to have a smart woman that we could put on the air and have great conversation with. Let's do that. Let's have our own great conversation. It doesn't matter whether or not we're part of a wave or not. You be you. It's like this our murder show, the true crime show. It became because we just all happen to listen to true crime podcasts and watch all the documentaries. We talk all about them. Your dad's a freaking former officer in the city of Chicago. Has seen it all. Like, it's engraved in us in the city of Chicago. Hey, let's just do our own.
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, you got to be yourself. So it's like, if you don't, especially when you're doing, like, your own business and you're trying to, don't try to be, just be the best you can be.
Right.
Because otherwise, you're all going to be failures if you try to be Joe Rogan. Because there's only one king of each thing. So you're trying to go for the crown. You know, you're not going to do it being the twin of them, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's great that you bring that up because it was not an argument, but it was a discussion brought up in class because I had made a statement in something I had written for like a peer workshop where I was like, you know, I realized I wasn't going to be the next J.K. Rowling. I wasn't going to be the next creator of Harry Potter. And everyone's like, shoot for the stars. And I'm like, but you're not, because you're never going to have another Harry Potter. You may have something that
eclipses or becomes
vein or is amazing like that, but it's not going to be the same character. And I'm like, so it's for me to sit there and say, this is what I'm going to, like, I accepted that. I accepted I needed to have a day job. I also hope that at some point I can only rely on my writing and be that in my work. But I think that was kind of the thing is I'm like, they're like, shoot for the stars. I'm like, this has nothing to do with not shooting for the stars. This has everything to do with being real and understanding where you are, where you stand, and where you want to go.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with having aspirations and being realistic.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's a problem with living in reality and acknowledging what your reality is, whether it's at the moment or will be, and also have the aspirations of, like, wanting better things. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're trying to create the next Harry Potter, no, you don't create the next Harry Potter. You create the next great thing.
Yes.
Like that, it's not about making the next whatever. It's not about for you sports fans, it's not about being Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
It was about being LeBron James. It was about being Kobe Bryant. It was about being Kevin Durant, Steph Curry. It wasn't that we lose track of like trying to be these people or these things or these goals opposed to just being the greatest us.
Yeah.
The greatest you, the greatest brand that you have. You're your own brand. Be the greatest brand you can be. There's not, I guess, how, you think Adidas sits there and says, like, damn, sucks we ain't Nike? It's like, yeah, they wish they had all of Nike's money. But Adidas is doing just okay when they go to bed at night.
Right.
So it's like, you don't strive to copy somebody. You just be the best version you can be. You just hope for the best.
So the last thing I kind of wanted to touch on is something that kind of I fortunately haven't had to deal with much because you deal with all of it, is like, how do you deal with negativity in this world? Because I don't, like, especially because of like just everything. You're always like, don't read the comments, guys. Just don't do it. It doesn't matter if they're good, bad, whatever. They could be neutral. You're like, don't read them because you can't unsee what you see kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, so how do you deal with that? Because you kind of take the brunt of it all from all of us.
Oh, man, that to me is the easiest one.
Really?
Yeah. I used to be it's very lame to say it. I used to have zero self-confidence in myself. Zero. Like, I walked the big game. I talked the big game. I was never sad. I was never anything. But, like, I never had confidence in myself. I had fake confidence. But, like, I walk around now and I'm like, I don't... What are you going to do to me? What are you going to say to me? Like, look it. I put my name out on everything. My face is on everything.
Yeah.
I'm in the third biggest market in the world. I don't... What are you going to... I'm 5'11", 230. I don't walk around scared. I don't talk scared. I don't hide behind an avatar or a chicken egg.
Yeah.
My last name is on all of my brands. Like, negativity is what? Like, what are you mad at? You mad at me? Cool. What are you going to do about it? You ain't going to do shit about it. And whether you want to talk about, like, trolls, it's like, yeah, there's crazy people out there that might hunt you down and pull John Lennon and shoot you. But it's like, for the most part, people are just angry and they live in a different reality now.
Yeah. I
came from, when I first started this in 2008, 2009, there was no social media the way it is now. So, like, Casey Kasem and Eddie and Jobo and for you people in Chicago, any of the Howard Stern, they didn't hear any of this shit.
Yeah.
That's not part of the game. I grew up in this, though. Like, I eventually got through my learning curve of this business through that. So it's the one thing you learn. It's like, oh, everybody talks a big game until you put a microphone in front of them.
Right.
Put a camera in front of them. You put their face out there. What would you tell me in my face? Or what would you say in front of thousands listening about? It's easy to type something. It's easy to retweet something. So another thing, though, when somebody's in your face and puts a camera or a microphone and says, what did you just say? Let's put your name on the record. Oh, you're that big and bad, huh? Oh, is that your mom out there? Why'd you? Oh, that's your daughter? Oh, is that your wife? What did you just say about women? Oh, because they don't have a Twitter account, a Facebook account. They didn't see it. Yeah. And for the ones who aren't afraid of it, they're not going to say it in front of another dude.
Right.
So it's like, that's the point is, it's like, yeah, for every crazy person, it's just chatter. And the crazy part is, there's more good than there is bad.
Oh, absolutely. It's
but
just the bad are loud.
Yeah, the bad is loud. But I highly suggest always drown out the bad. I love social media. I'm on it all the time. I love it. It's my ish. It just don't bother me. For every nasty social media thing, there's 100 great ones. Well, I'm not going to focus on the you know what? I'm a Chicago sports fan. There's enough negativity that I deal with watching the damn things than, fans who they only care about, whose arteries are filled with beer and shit like that. Like, I don't know. That shit don't bother me. The reason I tell you and Alex not to pay attention is because, like, you guys didn't ask for that. You guys just, it's part of the game, and you guys deal how you guys want to, but, like, there's no need to. It's 2018, like, there's no need to be part of that conversation. You already know what the conversation is. So why, it's not like you're new to that part of the world, so why, you already know. Don't get into it.
Yeah, no, I think that's for me. It was just like, you were very much like, hey, just don't do it, kind of thing. Like, don't bring that kind of negativity in your life. And I think that's a really good point. Like, in general, we all have to deal with negativity on a daily basis, just with everything that's out there. So it's a good kind of way to just, we get to continually enjoy what we do and not have to pay attention to all the other crap that goes with it.
Yeah, and it's like, it all depends on how famous you want to be. If you want to be social media famous, of course you're going to see it. But if you're just doing it to get your word out there and let people digest it and go from there, then what's the point? There's no need to. Just, you're good.
Well, thank you so much for being on this episode. I know I kind of dragged you from doing what you were doing, but I do appreciate it, and I'm sure everyone else will too. I know they love to hear from producer Mike.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. Thank you guys for letting me be part of the show. I appreciate it, Nicole.
All right, thank you guys so much again for tuning in to Typing When Tipsy. Please check out all of our other shows on Mercado Airwaves, Murder, Mysteries, and More, The Good Brothers, Sports from the Couch. We have so many things that you guys can kind of take and listen to. We have everything you could ever want, really. Like, we've tried to cover every single genre, so you guys have no excuses not to listen to us. And since I never, ever remember everybody's handles, I will let producer Mike do that portion because I am just horrible at it.
Great. I wonder what you would have done if I wasn't here.
I would have just left it in there and let you edit it.
She's at Typing When Tipsy. I'm at Mercado2333. If you'd like to follow the good brother, he's at Mercado21Alex. We're on Instagram. She's at Typing When Tipsy. I'm at Mike Mercado2333. You can check out Alex Flexing at Mercado2121. You can also check out our show, Murder, Mysteries, and More. If you want to tease up every episode we have coming up, check us out, Murder, Mysteries, and More. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Mercado Airwaves. We're on YouTube. Look us up, Mercado Airwaves Network. And get us anywhere you get your favorite podcast at Mercado Airwaves. While you're at it, please do us a huge favor, like, rate, review, and share us. And it means the world to us. Huge thank you to our sponsors at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. If you would like to hear our interviews ad-free and before anybody else with athletes and celebrities, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. And a huge thank you to friends of the show, Munch Art Design. If you need a graphic designer, digital media, photography, illustration, visual image, dial 773-297-8290 or go to munchart.com. Like them on Facebook at Munch Art Design.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Mike. And thank you to all of our sponsors and producers and all that good shit. Have a nice night.
If you would like to support Mercado Airwaves, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Find us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. Keep up to date with the show on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves.
You can see all of Nicole's work at typingwhentipsy.wordpress.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Mercado21Alex.
Follow Mike on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, Mike Mercado2333.
What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
Another day at the operator to go out there and test my skill.
to award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones, Orlando, how you doing,
How are
buddy?
you, sir? I'm good, brother. How you doing?
And all the other interesting guests we've had on. Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support.